Today I have for you a medieval mystery. Why didn't people change which hand was at the top of the grip with swords and, incidentally, with Japanese swords as well? Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria. Now over the years I have studied many different HEMA sources, and I'm not going to say that this is a universal truth, but as far as I have seen, longsword sources tend to put the dominant hand at the top of the grip and the non-dominant hand at the bottom of the grip. Sometimes they put the hands closer together, sometimes they put them further apart. It depends which system you follow and also personal preference as well. And what's interesting to mention at this point is that in Japanese swordsmanship, you will also find that whether you're doing kendo or various styles of kenjutsu, invariably one hand is kept at the top of the grip and the other one is kept at the bottom of the grip. Now in Japanese swordsmanship you are pretty much enforced in every school that I've ever looked at or conversed with to have your right hand at the top and the left hand at the bottom, so it's very, very conformist in that sense. And this is actually a right-handed grip. Now as we know, lots of cultures in the past had certain bias against awkward people. Awkward means left or left-handed. However, medieval Europe seems to have been slightly more tolerant on this front, because we do find references to left-handed fencers, particularly in the Bolognese sources, for example, using sword and buckler. They give you tactics to use as a left-hander and also against a left-hander. So we know that there were left-handed fencers. They're also described in the texts as well. Now what's the difference? Well, if you didn't know, right-handed with the dominant right hand at the top. If you were left-handed, you'd have your dominant left hand at the top. And these things do make a difference. For anyone who's been to a HEMA class where sometimes you've got right-handers, sometimes you've got left-handers, because we don't force people to all be right-handed, as they normally do in Japanese martial arts, and indeed as they would have done in military European arts. But within medieval martial arts, we allow left-handers to be left-handed. So indeed, we have some people like this and some people like this. And it makes a huge difference to how the techniques pan out, because you do have a degree of asymmetry to the body. It's not as if both hands are completely equidistant on the grip. If one is above the other, your arc of movement and your reach is different on one side compared to the other side. And here the wrists are uncrossed, here they start to cross. So it changes things even from that kind of outset. But indeed, as we get into the more advanced techniques where we're sometimes using the left hand to wrap or to grab or to push, do various other things with the left hand, then indeed the left-hander is different, because of course they're coming from the other side. So if you're used to fencing or fighting against right-handers, you will find it strange fighting against the left-hander. This is of course also true if they use a sword and a shield, because the shield will be on the opposite side to what you're used to. This leads to the phenomenon whereby a lot of people had noted that left-handers can have an advantage in fencing. This is even true in the modern Olympic sporting world as well, because of statistics, because there are fewer left-handed people, although that might be changing with time, but traditionally there's been fewer left-handed people, and left-handed people therefore are very used to facing right-handed people. Right-handed people are not very used to fencing left-handed people. So purely as a result of statistical experience, left-handers have an advantage. So there are mechanical differences to how you hold and swing and use the sword. You have a dominant side. It is always easier for a right-handed person to swing from the right-handed side. A left-handed person will naturally therefore swing more naturally from the left-handed side. The default blow that most people give under stress and under pressure is a downwards blow from their dominant side. Therefore a left-hander, it will be coming from the opposite direction. So if you're a right-hander, everything you've trained, you'll have to flip around very quickly. So you have to notice if someone is right or left-handed. Now, I will also briefly mention half swording. So this is another area where it changes whether you're right or left-handed, because half swording is something whereby the left hand comes up to support and sometimes grip the blade. This is used a lot in European sources, but is indeed also done occasionally in Japanese martial arts for very similar reasons, usually for fighting in armour, whereby the left hand is brought up to support the blade. Now obviously a right versus left-handed person, that will be different, because you will see usually the right-handed person will come at you this way, whereas the left-handed person will be coming at you this way. Now, you can flip that around, it must be said. So even if you are holding the sword in a right-handed grip here, you could keep the pommel hand on here and come this way around, but it's not something we normally see, because holding the sword at the back end, whether it's a katana or a longsword or a massive great zweihander, is generally speaking unwieldy, and it is easier to maneuver the sword one-handed by holding it at the top of the grip. So hopefully by now you will see that there are a lot of differences between a right-handed grip and a left-handed grip. It changes the techniques, it changes the statistics of what you're used to, all sorts of things. So, why is it that what we don't see in European longsword treatises, or indeed, as far as I'm aware, in any Asian traditions either, be it Japanese, Chinese, Korean, whatever, we don't see changing of the hands mid-fight? Why is it that we don't see in a longsword treatise occasionally a person flip around to a left-handed grip in order to get an advantage momentarily on their opponent? Even if that's not so natural for me to do, surely it would be a good trick. It would be a good thing that you could have in your toolbox to occasionally perform certain techniques from an angle or a direction or in a way which your opponent's not used to. So why don't we see it? I just want to add another bit of context in here. We exactly do find this strategy in poleaxe sources, and not only poleaxe sources, but also spear and other polearms. So when we look at the various sources, be it things like Maya, Polasector Maya, anonymous Bolognese sauce, or Le Jus de la Hache, all of these many treatises we've got for the use of pole weapons, and poleaxes are what I've personally particularly focused on. We do indeed find techniques given with a right hand lead and then flipped around to a left hand lead. And sometimes it will be left hand lead versus left hand lead, and sometimes it will be right versus right, and sometimes it will be left versus right or right versus left. And in Le Jus de la Hache, they give these, and Anonimo Bolognese, they give these as variations. So sometimes you might want to be leading with the left hand here and be giving a strike from the right side, but other times you might flip around and be leading with the left hand. So we find this in poleaxe sources, and indeed we also find it in spear sections of various treatises as well. So they knew about this, they did this, and they agree with me that it has advantages, and even sometimes it might not even be voluntary, it might not even be part of your strategy, it might just be something that happens in a fight. So why didn't they do it with swords? I honestly don't know. So this is a video where I'm not going to give you a satisfying answer or theory. I believe it might be something to do with the length of the hilt, but I can't quite work out what it is. So do you have any theories? Why do you think it is that people did switch hands often with things like poleaxes, glaives and spears, but both in Europe and in Asia, they tended not to switch which hand was at the top of the grip with swords, be it a longsword or a Japanese katana, or indeed a Korean two-handed sword or Chinese or anything else? Answers down below if you've got any, or further questions. Hopefully, even if you don't go away with any ultimate answer to this question, this video will have given you some information, because you might not be aware that these things are a fact, or indeed that there is a difference between right and left-handed when you're holding a two-handed weapon, which there very much is. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I have been Matt Easton, I will continue to be, and I hope I'll see you back on the channel really soon. Cheers folks! Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers folks!